Welcome to Discovering with Dr. Deb. Our last season, we were discovering the Enneagram with Dr. Deb, and it was packed with a lot of information while also being a lot of fun to talk about and explore the Enneagram and why we do what we do. So go back and check out those episodes if you haven't seen them already. Here we are in season 2, and I'm going to be focusing on trauma and using EMDR therapy as a tool to help process trauma. My co-host for this season is psychologist Dr. Christie Sprowls from Austin, Texas. She has traveled all over the world to provide EMDR in humanitarian efforts, and she has also trained clinicians and providers in EMDR therapy. So get ready, let's dive right in and talk about trauma. Hello and welcome. Today we are going to talk with Dr. Christie Sprowls, and we're going to touch a little bit about a term that may be familiar to those watching and may not. It's called vicarious traumatization, vicarious trauma, sometimes called secondary trauma. Mm-hmm. And you want to unpack it or you want me to?
You.
So basically what that means is you're traumatized by other people's trauma, basically. Mm-hmm. So that happens a lot for frontline workers. It's common amongst counselors, emergency personnel, police, fire, physicians.
Attorneys.
I hadn't thought about attorneys. Mm-hmm. Attorneys. Mm-hmm. Okay, now you're making me really kind of think. So how would that, I guess because personal injury stuff, yes. Maybe? Okay.
And family law.
Oh, family law. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Gosh, there's a whole nother population I hadn't even thought about. Yeah. So what happens is, I'll just talk about it from a counseling perspective. You know, we hear people's stuff all day, every day. And I have good friends who are physicians and clients that are physicians and for like emergency room docs and things like that. Like they see people, and another friend too, she's a trauma surgeon. They see people at their worst moments.
Yes.
Whether they're the patient or the patient's family. Mm-hmm. And so, that has to go somewhere. You know, we carry it.
Yes.
We really carry it. In fact, I've got a self-care day scheduled in a couple of days to get a nice massage.
Excellent.
But that is so important because if we don't have good, healthy self-care, we can suffer burnout and vicarious trauma.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
And it's not very pretty.
No. Do you have any examples you want to share or just kind of talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think it's something that's pretty common, as you were saying, mm-hmm. in the industry, in lots of different industries, mm-hmm. Things we wouldn't have thought about before, but it's there, and it is something that we should be paying attention to for not only for others, but for us, mm-hmm. right? For mm-hmm. our part right. in the healing. So vicarious traumatization, just happens. And the worst, in my mind, the worst thing that can happen as a result of vicarious traumatization is that it's like Velcro. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't really notice it. Again, mm-hmm. just things start sticking to you, mm-hmm. and then pretty soon you're carrying around this load of the right. world, and you're really unaware. You feel a little slower maybe than usual.
Right.
And it may happen where you actually hit the wall. I was working with the Texas Lawyers Assistance Program, and was working with attorneys. That's the only reason I know that attorneys suffer from this.
Hadn't thought about it.
Yeah. Well, it was very interesting to me too. I learned something. But some of them have to quit practicing for like a year or two, and get their little feet underneath them. Mm-hmm. All of us. I'll tell this story too. When I first started becoming a therapist, I was working with immigrants and people who were tortured, okay? So here I am, a brand new little person in the world, in this EMDR world, or in the therapy world, I should just say. And they're telling stories. And I won't go into the stories because I don't want to traumatize the audience.
Right, but
I was watching, I was listening, mm-hmm. and I wasn't really sure how am I going to help this person. But I would go home and I would relive it, and mm-hmm. I would be thinking about it and all the horrors that they had told me. And I went to my professor and I said, because I was still in school, and I said, I'm not sure I'm cut out for this.
Right.
Because I'm listening to these stories, and I can't, I'm taking them home.
Right.
I'm not sure. So I thought an interesting thing that he did, but let's just say he took us out to teach us some self-care. Okay, and how to take in that information and then how to release it. And that's one of the big things that I was kind of wanting to say for all of us, any of us who are providers, that you learn you can take it in and then you can let it out.
Absolutely.
Any way that you know how to do that. What does vicarious trauma look like? It looks like you're traumatized. Seriously, you're going to have intrusive thoughts. You're going to be hypervigilant. You're going to be all the things that people with PTSD are.
Right.
And it will be brought on by the environment. And again, we keep talking about the pandemic, but that is just something where we're living right now. It is affecting everybody. So, with vicarious trauma, I have so many different, things like I personally have gone all over the world to tsunami, and I was up for the tofu houses in China. I was floods and Bangladesh. I mean, on and on and on. Any disaster site that had happened in the United States, including 9/11, including
Hurricane Katrina.
Katrina, exactly. And shootings, right? So just so many that you can't keep doing that and witnessing things. But in those environments, you go, and what I have learned is that we go as a team, and we support each other through it. And then the minute we get home is that we all have to go through EMDR ourselves.
Oh, okay.
We do. We debrief, and then we all do EMDR, because when I was in Indonesia and laying in the bed at night after working out in the world of the tsunami and listening to the stories and seeing the devastation and seeing, they showed that ship like on land from 5 miles from the ocean.
Right.
It was right where I was. And then I'd go to bed and there were bugs crawling all over me. Like bugs, and I'd be like, I cried.
Right. Well, I would have too.
Oh my gosh! Every night after disaster site. So I just feel like I'm sort of just riffing here a little bit, but I feel like we have to be kind to ourselves. We have to sort of help, like you said. You've got a day coming, a self-care day coming. Right.
Yes.
So get EMDR, get your sleep, get a vacation, get your self-care stuff taken care of.
Yeah. Well, so often I think, it gets addressed in grad school and things like that, but it's just, I don't think it's emphasized enough. And I think it's more than just taking a bubble bath.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So often it's, take a double bubble bath and, go home and hug your kids and it'll be okay, know. And like you just said, you debrief, which is super important.
Yep.
Super important. Can't even undervalue that, or overvalue that, I should say. Anyway, so you have to do that, and then doing EMDR for yourselves. I didn't really realize that was kind of the protocol, but that would be necessary.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise it'll get stuck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The world. You're carrying around the world. In fact, I have it. Maybe we can take a picture of it or something and show it somewhere on this. But I have a picture of children who did a type of EMDR therapy from the tsunami.
Oh.
And for me, it's really poignant. It's so cool.
Yeah.
To see that they can go from this drawing to this drawing to this drawing to finally this drawing of rebuilding their home and having a little flower in a hut.
Yes.
It's I hope we can show that.
Sure.
But going to these places, for healing, you also take away the joy of being able to help the society, and the people who have dealt with it. But it's so important to take care of ourselves.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of these professions that we've named are, they're rewarded for their toughness.
Yeah.
And being strong and taking one for the team and not having needs of their own. And I think that does a huge disservice to them. It'll lead to burnout. It'll lead to people leaving the professions, whatever they might be. And, we need those frontline people. I mean,
Absolutely.
we need teachers even,
Yes,
especially after the pandemic, and they had to transition, it's like they had to go virtual with like no warning.
Yeah.
No warning. And then try to hold space for those kids, and how do I teach these? And like kindergarten going virtual, some of these things. And then what about the kids that they're at home, but it's not a good environment? And so these teachers just felt terrible, and they ached for them, and so even that, there's vicarious trauma, and so, but just having a space for them to be able to like debrief and then process it, and because it's no different. Like you said, it's kind of like Velcro.
Yes.
You're this walking thing, and all those balls get stuck to you,
Yes,
and
exactly.
until you dislodge them, they're still there. So, so yeah, self-care is critical. I know it's one thing we have a whole class on it every semester with my intern students on self-care, and having them look at their emotional well-being, their mental well-being, their physical well-being, social,
Yes.
and just all aspects of their life, and what can they do, and really to have a list of maybe a dozen things. Like, so, it may be hiking, getting out in
That's
nature
right.
is
That's
a great
right.
one, but maybe the weather's not going to. So what's next on the list? So
Yeah.
taking care of yourself, because otherwise this is going to affect you. Like, it can't not. When maybe day 1, day 2, day 10, you're okay, but guess what? It's going to catch up with you.
It will, and it does.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because those people who are the tough ones, probably are going to fall the hardest because
Yeah.
they've been giving,
Yeah.
strong. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, whoops,
Yeah.
not now.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we've alluded to this in other episodes where then what happens is their response to situations
Yes.
is a trauma response.
That's right.
Because they haven't dealt with it, because vicarious trauma is trauma nonetheless.
That's right.
Right. So we've seen that with law enforcement, unfortunately,
Yes.
in our societies and in the media, and it's a trauma response. And so that's where that vicarious trauma, it catches up to you. But it happens in all of our fields, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I realized that because working in the trauma field, we are going to have our unfair share of trauma, hearing traumas. And one day recently, I sat down and I'm looking at retirement. Yippee! Anyway,
You're looking at it. I'm thinking about it.
I might even be stepping into it. Who knows? I don't know. Okay, here we go, one toe at a time. But I sat down on the couch and I was just being, kind of staring out the window, dissociating. So as the clouds were passing, so did this really horrific event that happened. I still have things inside of me that I haven't done on my own. And I thought to my husband, and I said, gosh, do you think this is what retirement's going to be? Me sitting here thinking about all these horrible things that have happened. I need some EMDR.
You need some EMDR, yeah.
Because it again, hidden, quiet, stuck on you. You don't really know what all's affecting you. But as much as possible, we need to pay attention to those signs.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like practice those healthy coping skills, because otherwise it's not. So kind of healthy coping skills, self-care, EMDR.
Yeah, that's right. That's the antidote.
That would be the antidote for that. That's what needs to be in the toolkit, because otherwise, like I said, then their responses are going to be trauma responses, and when I look at, so sometimes too, I will have people that come in that are in those professions, and they're like, how do you know it's a trauma response? And that's a valid question.
Yes.
So sometimes I describe it as, you look at the precipitating event, and was the response appropriate? And sometimes it was disproportionate.
Yes, that's right.
It was disproportionate, the way they responded to what triggered it. Like, it might have been a minor, and so I'll have them number it. What is the event that happened, scale of 1 to 10, and it's like a 3. Well, the response was like an 8, or or 10, you know. So it's like, okay, that alone is an easy way to kind of gauge, is it a trigger, you know, a trauma response to a trigger. And so that's really helped my clients a lot. And a lot of times they'll recognize, and then a lot of times they can even recognize, you know, what the trigger was.
Excellent.
And then a lot of times they can't. And so then we kind of will go back to first time they might have noticed it, and you know, the traditional kind of things that we're going to do with them through EMDR.
Good. I love that. And I had written an article for the Lawyers Assistance Program Law Journal in Texas. And I had sort of like this sheet of, I'm sure I have it somewhere here, but things to do. And, you know, I mean, some of them we think are easy, but that's like get off your phone, you know, put it down at night.
Don't watch the news.
Don't watch the news.
Right.
Right. And even during that pandemic, I think that was something that was interesting. They called it something, but people were just glued to the news, you know?
Yeah.
And anyway.
Well, because socially we were isolated. That's all we had.
Yes, that's right.
You know, and that's another thing too, is don't be isolated. Like get out among your people. Like go to your church or your synagogue or your place of worship. Go, you know, to a community event. And, you know, some people are still leery, you know, and uncomfortable about doing too much of that yet, which is understandable. We just had COVID not too long ago. I can understand that and be respectful. Others, it's, you know, it's a little more comfortable and they're more apt to do that. So it's like, then do that, you know. Yes. Engage with family, engage with loved ones, you know. But even if you just get out in nature, there's so much healing power in nature. You know, and we're in Arkansas. It's the natural state. Yeah. I mean, it really is beautiful.
Yes, it is.
And, but there's so much and, you know, I've got friends in Oregon and Florida. Like, you can find the beauty anywhere. But that's really so important. Getting outside of yourself and your kind of bubble. I think with the isolation that we had, just being locked into our own homes, you have to get out of it.
Imagine.
Yeah, you have to get out of it. And that's my number one kind of self-care. What did you do outside of your home, you know? And then with other people. And then the other thing too, a lot of times a lot of these professions are people that are strong and tough. You know, they're authority figures, whether it's a teacher or a physician or law enforcement. And it's, you know, they don't want to come across or appear as weak or vulnerable. And it's okay, you know. So find a safe person.
That's right.
That you can be real with. You can be authentic. You can be genuine. You can express genuinely what's going on with you. And it may be a therapist. I mean, job security, you know, for us. But and that's the thing. I've had clients I've had for years, but because you become that safe person, especially when they're in those types of fields.
Well, and it's needed, and they are right to worry about it. Like in the military, no promotions. In the military, you can't count on that person, so they get shunned. And you know, law, same thing. Oh, weakling. You know, so you cannot really expose that. I think things are changing now, but still,
slowly, not a lot.
I agree.
Yeah,
it's very, inch by inch, right? Or centimeter by centimeter. Or whatever.
Very slowly.
Yes,
very slowly, and we won't talk about that.
Yeah,
edit that part out. Not the part of before, but yeah. But that's important. It's important to have this safe place to really be genuine, be authentic, identify what you're feeling, identify when you first noticed it, really process it, have a healthy place to process it. It may not require EMDR. It may just require a safe place to just talk about what's been going on. But sometimes it may lend itself to, you know, EMDR. I mean, if it was really, you know, traumatic. I've had, like I said, trauma surgeons and ER docs, and they sometimes, truthfully, I think the EMDR that we've done with them hasn't even really related to their job, their occupation. If they can deal with other things, then they can do their job. You know?
Yes.
But there's so many things that overlap and affect them, you know. And in our job, listening to people's stories day after day, helplessness, hopelessness, and just having empathy for them, it's going to wear on you.
Yes. Because you have to let some of that in. right? You have to
Yeah.
feel some of it. We can be guarded,
Right.
and I know we're skilled at that.
Right.
We can listen
Right.
and take it in, but not own it as our
Right.
own.
But if we don't have empathy, we suck.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We're really, really bad therapists. People,
Yeah.
we would not.
I mean,
have
Carl Rogers.
Yeah.
Empathy is one of the three, primary.
Yes. Well, plus it's so good
cornerstones.
for your brain.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Empathy is. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Mhm.
Oh, good.
I know we're going to be good. Hopefully,
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
audience.
Protect us. Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add about vicarious trauma? I'm glad we talked about it. It's really so important. Like I said, I've got a lot of work that I've been doing with physicians, law enforcement people that have been investigating like violent crimes, crimes against children. So they are, if they haven't already experienced vicarious trauma, they're going to.
Yes.
So it's definitely something that we need to be aware of, and especially in the counseling profession, to be looking for, to help people identify how they're going to handle it
Yeah.
and prevent it.
That's right.
Right.
And how to keep people in their jobs.
Right.
Right. And how, and how not to suffer beyond, like I'm thinking about in the future.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having the chat about it.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this talk about vicarious traumatization, and I hope you'll check back on the other episodes that we've recorded, and that you'll continue watching. See you next time. Bye-bye. If this content has been helpful to you, I'd appreciate it if you would please rate the podcast, post it, and share it on social media. And also post a review. If you'd like to get in contact with me, my phone is 479-561-7600, or email Dr. Deborah at anchoredhopecounseling.net or Dr. Deborah at drdebfordoctors.com. Our website at www.anchoredhopecounseling.net has some useful information, and you can also reach out to me through the website. Remember, you are enough just the way you are, and you are loved.